Good afternoon to this operational briefing on Operation Unified Protector. As ever, we have the operations military spokesman, Wing Commander Mike Bracken, just walking up to the microphone in Naples. Just a few words from me to kick off. As you know, NATO defense ministers this week made clear that they're determined to fulfill the mandate of the United Nations to provide all the resources necessary for as long as it is necessary to accomplish our mission. This is, of course, the military track. On the political track, the International Contact Group on Libya met in Abu Dhabi yesterday. NATO was represented by the Assistant Secretary for Political Affairs, Dirk Brengelmann, and the statement of the co-chairs made clear that consensus is growing around the world, that the time has come to open a new chapter in Libya's history. Gaddafi must go. He has lost all legitimacy and must draw all the consequences by relinquishing power. The participants appreciated the effective role played by the NATO-led Operation Unified Protector in protecting the civilian population from Gaddafi's attacks and in achieving the goals of the UN Security Council resolutions 1970 and 1973. The contact group also welcomed the decision to extend the NATO operation by 90 days and the increased national contributions to the operation, and they also encouraged further contributions to NATO's efforts. Finally, the contact group agreed on the necessity to reinforce international pressure in order to accelerate a political solution to the crisis, and confirmed its determination to use any legitimate means to put an end to the violence in Libya. The ongoing political, economic and military pressure is having a strong impact on the solidity of Gaddafi's hold on power. The statement by the co-chairs of the International Contact Group also mentioned the fact that militarily regime forces have suffered several defeats and have lost control of territory, and NATO has intensified airstrikes on the regime's command and control sites in and around Tripoli. So that is what the contact group had to say. Now we can go straight to Naples and Wing Commander Mike Bracken for today's operational update. Mike.
Thank you, Oana, and good afternoon, Brussels, and welcome to today's Operation Unified Protector operational update. Slide, please. Let's start off by discussing operations over the past week. NATO has seen its most intense precision airstrikes on targets in Tripoli. However, orders are still coming out from the capital, which is why we continue to hit Gaddafi's commander control, military equipment, intelligence structures, and other military facilities in and around the city that are actively engaged in brutal repression of the civilian population. Without orders, units are cut off, they are demoralized, and they are less likely to attack civilians and more likely to lay down their arms and return to their homes. Our tactics are working. The sustained strikes in Tripoli being carried out day and night are putting considerable pressure on the regime. Taking out the command and control nodes is causing confusion and desperation within the regime. We see it every day with the news of senior defections and troops abandoning their posts. This footage shows NATO aircraft striking Gaddafi regime facilities in Tripoli over the last few days. As with all NATO strikes, a series of checks were carried out to minimize collateral damage. The aircraft released their highly accurate weapons, which use both laser and GPS guidance to ensure minimum collateral damage. But I'd like to reassure the people of Tripoli that these strikes are not directed at them or the population of Libya. They are against those who continue to support the pro-Gaddafi regime, a regime of violence and increasingly outrageous propaganda and lies. In the east, from Benghazi to Ashdabia, regime conventional attacks against civilians have virtually stopped. A growing number of people in eastern Libya are returning to normal life, and they no longer face the daily threat of shelling and violence. And as many of you will know, last Saturday morning in the area around Bracken, attack helicopters were used for the first time to target pro-Gaddafi forces. These helicopters were employed under the command of Nato. These missions were successful and demonstrated that Nato was right to add this versatile and efficient asset to its tool set. The commander will use attack helicopters with care and precision when the mission demands their unique capabilities, alongside fighter aircraft, bombers, AWACS, and surveillance assets. All NATO assets, including the Predator, will be employed to ensure NATO maintains the pressure on the regime to stop the attacks on its own people. Of interest, this slide, which we discovered recently during our surveillance techniques, identifies a very unusual activity. What we see here is a large trench being dug near Bracken, which was being filled with what looks like black fluid. This is a significant concern to NATO and may have a potential environmental impact in the area in the future. Moving to the west and to the Berber Highlands. NATO is encouraged by the daily signs that the grip of Gaddafi's regime is weakening. There are still skirmishes and military forces are moving around the region on both sides. But our assessment is that Yafran, Zintan, and Wazin are at this time under the control of anti-Gaddafi forces. A reassuring sign is that Médecins Sans Frontières, who just 2 weeks ago evacuated the hospital in Zintan, have now said they will return to the town. Continued indiscriminate shelling on some western towns tells us that the threat against civilians is not yet removed. So NATO assets are closely monitoring this dynamic situation to identify and deal with forces threatening the population. With bombs, radio messages, and leaflet drops, our message to pro-Gaddafi forces is clear. Stop attacking innocent people and return to your bases and your homes. Moving west to Misrata and Tripoli. The front line east of Tripoli and west of Misrata, near Slintan, is volatile and unstable. It is difficult to maintain a clear picture of recent reporting of pro-Gaddafi advances around Misrata. We know that there have been shellings and some sporadic engagements, but whether Gaddafi forces are able to launch a large-scale attack remains unconfirmed. NATO will continue to monitor the situation using all NATO and partner assets available in order to conduct its mission and protect civilians. Food and humanitarian aid is free to arrive via the port, and more humanitarian organizations are in a position to assess the needs of the population. We will carry on assisting those organizations whenever and however we can. Let's now discuss the air campaign. NATO continues to enforce the no-fly zone throughout Libya, and it is successfully keeping Gaddafi's regime's air assets grounded. Since the beginning of NATO operations in Libya, we have flown about 10,500 sorties, almost half of which have been strike sorties. The strikes carried out so far continue to lock down Gaddafi's forces, resulting in them being unable to maneuver, and they struggle to operate coherently to launch attacks. NATO has persistently damaged or destroyed legitimate and critically military targets, which have been used to coordinate attacks against civilians. These include command and control nodes, ammunition stores, tanks, and armoured personnel carriers, as well as rocket launchers, which have been used to fire indiscriminately at the civilians. NATO's selection of targets is complex, ranging from advanced imagery to integrated information gathered, which means we can meticulously strike targets with a high degree of precision, thus minimizing the risk of civilian casualties. This slide demonstrates artillery hidden in tree lines. If you look carefully at the small pictures, you can see the barrels of weapons sticking out of the trees. This is the aftermath of the precision strikes. This is what we call the battle damage assessment imagery. And from that, you can see that those 4 missiles or 4 tanks have been removed and are no longer a threat to the population. This video shows another NATO strike on concealed weapons. You can see the afterburning of the weapons inside the vehicles or around the vehicles and the artillery pieces. Okay, this slide, you can hopefully see in the foreground 2 SA-8 pieces. To the right and top, you can see a football match taking place. It's in the top of the shot. What NATO were able to do was to see this football match taking place, ease off, hold the target, and then after a period of time when the area was completely clear of personnel and the people on the ground, conduct a strike. Video, please. Now, this location of an SA-8 demonstrates a willingness on Gaddafi's part to operate within the civilian community and NATO's care to avoid civilian casualties by waiting until the area was clear of the people. And that's the demise of an SA-8. Moving to the maritime environment, the embargo has been crucial in stopping the flow of weapons and what we call dual-use equipment, such as civilian pickup trucks, which are used to transport weapons and ammunition around Libya. NATO's minesweeping efforts have kept the approaches to the ports of Misrata clear of danger to both commercial and humanitarian shipping. Those vessels that breach the embargo or take part in any activities, such as laying mines, that hinder the delivery of humanitarian aid will be dealt with swiftly and decisively. We often speak of the NATO members' contribution to this operation, which remains significant. However, the Commander would like to convey his thanks to the partner nations of this operation, particularly our Arab colleagues from Qatar, and all those that have worked alongside us since the beginning of the operation. Our primary mission is to stop Gaddafi forces threatening and killing civilians. We are achieving that mission. Gaddafi has lost all credibility. His forces' suppression of the population through the use of violence and torture against innocent men, women and children means he no longer has any right to call himself their leader. Thanks to the effectiveness of NATO military pressure, Gaddafi's time is up. His troops are demoralized. His generals and his ministers are leaving him. The Libyan people don't want him. Gaddafi will not win this fight. He must go. NATO has the upper hand, and we will continue to keep up the pressure until Gaddafi's ability to terrify and oppress the Libyan people crumbles. Gaddafi's only future is out of power and out of Libya. Thank you. I'll happily take questions alongside Oana.